Okay, so fine, what do you do when your computer crashes? Well, first you curse, and then you do the stupid things that idiot primates do when they're trying to deal with something that's way too complex, and maybe you turn it on and off, right? And that doesn't work, it didn't work. And so then I thought, well, maybe the power bar went, so I checked the power bar, and I turned it on and off and nothing happened. And so I brought a light behind the computer, the light wouldn't go on. And so I thought, aha, I must have blown a fuse. So I went to the fuse box and took a look, but the fuses were fine. And so I thought, oh, the power's gone out. So then I went outside and the power was out. None of the street lights were working, the power was out everywhere. And it was seriously out because this was the time that almost the entire northeast power grid in Quebec collapsed. And the reason it collapsed is because there was a solar flare. That happens reasonably often, and the solar flare produced a huge electromagnetic pulse because it's basically like a million hydrogen bombs going off at the same time, 93 million miles away, produces this tremendous electromagnetic pulse, passes through the Earth's atmosphere, produces a spike in current in the main power lines and blows the whole system. And so just so you know, an event like that happens about every 150 years, and if we had one now it would take out all of our electronics, like one of the big ones. There was a big one back in the late 1800s. Everything, satellites, computers, cars, everything, gone. And so that's a big problem and no one knows what to do about it. One missed us by about 9 minutes, I think 2 years ago. So that's something else to worry about if you're inclined to worry about those sorts of things. Okay, so what did I conclude from that? Well, the function of my computer was dependent on the stability of the sun. It's not the first thing you check out when your computer crashes, right? You don't run out and go, hey, well, yeah, the sun's still there, no problem, I can cross that off the list. But to me, it's an extraordinarily interesting example of the invisible interdependence of things, and our tendency to fragment things. What we seem to do is to look at things at the simplest level of analysis that actually functions. So for example, when you're interacting with your computer, you're not interacting with your computer at all, really. You're interacting with the keyboard, sort of one key at a time, and you're interacting with the symbols on the screen. But as long as the computer is working, you don't care about it at all. You don't give it a second thought. And you certainly don't care about the fact that it's dependent on, well, the electrical power, for example, and the electrical power is dependent on, I don't know how many men are out there right now, or were out there last night when it was freezing rain, fixing power lines and freezing to death while they're doing it so that your stupid computer doesn't malfunction while you're watching cat videos. I mean, there's this incredibly dynamic living system that's social and economic and political that has to remain dead stable in order for us to have access to functional and like pure non-fluctuating electricity 100% of the time. Because you also don't think, well, the stability of your computer is dependent on the stability of the political system, but of course it is, because if the political system mucks up and the economic system goes, then people don't go out and work to fix things, and things are breaking all the time. That's their normal state, is broken, not working. And that's all, in some sense, folded up, not only inside your computer, but actually inside your conceptions of your tiny conceptions of the computer while you're using it. And you only get a glimpse of what the computer is really like when it doesn't work. Then it's when it becomes a complex object, right? As long as it's working, then your stupid perceptions are perfectly fine to get the job done. So, when your computer goes wrong, well, you have to pick the proper level of analysis to fix it. And you could say, well, there's something wrong with the circuit board, and maybe there's a crack in one of the somewhere that it's soldered, or sometimes now when people are building microchips, they've run into a crazy problem. Microchips keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller, right? And so the little wires now are down to atomic width, or the width of maybe 20 atoms or something like that, but really they're really getting thin. And so that produces another problem which no one would have ever, you wouldn't expect, and that is, that at the quantum level there's uncertainty about where electrons might be. Normally that doesn't matter. The degree of uncertainty about where your electrons are is small enough at your size so that it's basically irrelevant. But down at the subatomic level, where these microchips are starting to be produced, sometimes the electrons will be outside the wires, and that means that they're getting so damn small that they'll short circuit by themselves because the electrons aren't stable enough to be where they're supposed to be in the wires. And so, well, the reason I'm pointing that out is because a problem that exists in a system can exist at any of the multiple levels of that system, and it isn't obvious where to start. And a lot of political arguments are like that.